Hi, my name's Tony and I'm here to tell you a little bit more about the all-new Starboard 2021 14x25 Sprint in wood carbon. So here it is, all new for 2021, the Starboard 14x25 Sprint in wood carbon. And this board is probably one of our more popular Sprint models, mainly because it offers such a broad range of paddlers, such a easy entry into what is a very, very performance-focused board and ultimately performance-focused lineup from Starboard. The Sprint range from Starboard basically fits in amongst two others, and that's the All-Star, which is more of an all-rounder. The way to think about that board is a bit like a 4x4 in a sense, or an SUV, in that it kind of accomplishes so much. And then you've also got the Ace, and the Ace is a very, very dedicated downwind machine. But the Sprint has very broad appeal because it can achieve so much. It's exceptionally quick in the flat. That's primarily what it's designed for. But really in a decent sea state and chop, it really does perform. And there comes a point where an All-Star will outstrip a Sprint, for sure. But it's really kind of take a lot of people aback when they come here to the test center and try the Sprint, just how capable it is, particularly in a chop. So here in the south coast of the UK, we have a very short, sharp chop, and the Sprint is hugely capable because it just punches through, it remains stable all the time, particularly when you do engage the nose and the very boxy rails that Sprints have with the last few iterations. And really at a world level, you look at some of the Starboard world team roster and the results that they've had, particularly Michael Booth, multiple world champion, very, very capable. Boothie uses the board in a broad range of races that throw up a really very, very wide range of conditions. So from rivers and inland lakes and waterways to really decent sea states, you'll still see him on a Sprint and still at the front, notably, and that's down to really just how capable this board is. But look, this board in particular, 14x25 wide Sprint, we've got a separate video which you can actually have a look at just up here for the 14x23.5 Sprint. And the reason why we've done that this year is where we would normally cover off the Sprint just with one video. These two boards are very popular, so they warrant the videos in their own right, but they are also wildly different, albeit they share the same name. And just to kind of explain how different they are, the 23.5 wide actually has 6 litres less than this board in terms of volume, albeit it is a narrower 14-foot board. But it's the way in which this board distributes that volume as well. So side by side, we'll throw up another shot right now as well, and you'll see them side by side, just how different they are in terms of the thickness of the rail. This board actually runs at about 7 inches thick, whereas the 23.5 wide distributes its volume and it is 9 inches thick. And the reason for that difference in thickness is simply because the 14x25 is much wider, then it actually is able to spread that volume across a much bigger surface area because the board is simply bigger. The big advantage with the 14x25 Sprint over the 23.5 is it is exceptionally stable. And because it is a dugout board, as all of the Starboard Sprints are, it is a very stable board. You get a very, very strong sense of being locked in to the board and very secure as a result. But look, let's run you through the board down from the nose down to the tail as we do in all of our videos here at the Sup Company. And the nose on the 2021 Starboard Sprint is where we've seen a lot of change. There is a lot more volume in the forward section of the nose. It is exceptionally boxy now. And the really nice thing about having such a boxy forward section is that you end up with these very big, clear slab sides. And these simply brace and act as, if you like, shoulders within the water, and they provide an awful lot of stability to the forward section of the Sprint, and that runs all the way down the length of the board. And you do end up with, and I've said it already, this locked in feel, but they do just feel very, very secure. If you were to put a Sprint over on its rail and it's a bit choppy, or as we all know, start lines particularly can chop up a lot, you end up feeling much more secure on a Sprint and something with these boxy sides than you would do perhaps on other brands. What I would say is, as well, is that feeling doesn't really come with much of a downside, because it gives you a lot more confidence as well. So then you can start to, when you are in the catch phase of your paddle stroke, you can really start to load the paddle much more confidently and ultimately put more power down, and in a sense then just be faster overall, whether that's acceleration or maintaining a higher top speed. And the Sprints are exceptionally user friendly. But as you come down the board here, you'll find that, you know, aesthetically, it's really striking this year. Starboard are well known for their orange tipped boards. This year they've chosen to run it down across the surface of the deck, and I really like how that looks. But as you come on down, we come into this deep cockpit area. Notably, because the board isn't as thick as the 23.5, you're not as deep within the board. But that's no bad thing, because what they've done with the cockpit this year is they've really widened the stance. And you can see just how they've actually managed to spread the internal cockpit to the extremities of the outboard rail, and you're just able to actually get a much wider stance. So really use, in essence, all of the 25 inches of width of this board and what it has to offer, which ultimately means that you feel much more stable and secure because you're kind of wrapped into the board. But as you want to move up and down the deck, the really nice thing with Starboard is that they've actually smoothed out this ramp that runs down to the tail of the board. They've actually brought it forward slightly. The transition is much smoother. So when you do work your way down to engage a buoy turn and sink the tail of the board, you can feel much more stable underfoot, and everything's just kind of where you'd expect it to be. In early iterations of the board a few years ago, it felt like all of a sudden you were running up a very steep hill. This year, more than most, it just feels much smoother, and it's less of a mountain to climb, it's just more of a gentle hill, and it's just much more comfortable. As you work your way down to the tail of the board though, there is a kick pad there that helps stop you from running off the back in the heat of the moment. But it does just, you find the board still very wide in the tail, and it's very boxy. So when you do come to sink the tail down, it's just exceptionally secure. And again, lots and lots of stability when you're exposed in perhaps, you know, heat of the battle, coming round the mark rounding. It just provides you a lot of confidence on this board. But look, let's take the board and just roll it over onto its rail. Now it's worth noting that this is the wood carbon construction, and as the wood carbon construction, that does one thing really for us that stands out above all things compared to the carbon sandwich version of these boards, and that really, it makes it much more affordable. And it means you can now choose a board based on the one you want as opposed to the price point. Ultimately, once you accept that you're spending this level of money on a performance orientated board, then yeah, you can now choose within the Starboard range between an All-Star or a Sprint and find the right board for you. And this board particularly actually is one of our test centre boards here at the SUP company in Southampton. So if you want to come down and try it, you're more than welcome. But as we roll it up onto the rail, you can see just how secure it is there on its boxy sides. It's not going anywhere, they are that boxy. But you can see on the underside there, the nose on the board, it does invert down below the water surface, and that provides a very locked in feel. So for tracking, it aids it a lot. The board just wants to stay straight and true, but you don't have to actually put a lot of pressure onto the tail pad in order to release that from the water surface and then find the board much freer to turn. That leads back in though to this year in 2021, Starboard have really reduced the depth of the single concave channel that we've seen in previous years, and that is simply to induce much more lift. So the 2021 Sprint accelerates much quicker than we've had in previous years, and that just enables you to get the top speed of the board much faster as a result. The single concave though runs all the way down to the tail, remains shallow all the way past the very short US fin box, as do the chamfered rails as well. This year they also run right down to the tail of the board, so that secondary stability is there all the way to the tail. In terms of fin, The 14 by 25 Sprint wood carbon comes with Starboard's proven race ultra fin. That's a very deep fin. It provides a lot of lateral stability in the tail end of the board. But if you were looking for something slightly more performance orientated from your fin, then perhaps a third-party fin like a Time Trial from VMG or a Danny Ching FCS2 is perhaps worth a look. But overall, yeah, it's a really good quality fin that comes with the board as well. So if you're looking for your first foray into racing, or perhaps a very performance orientated tourer, and you weigh somewhere between 70 to 105 kilos, then really the 14 by 25 Starboard Sprint wood carbon in 2021 should be on your shortlist, as it's well worth a look. Thanks for watching our video. If you've got any questions about what you've seen, why not give us a call in the shop or head over to thesupco.com. To stay up to date with all of our videos, why not subscribe up here and click the notification bell. If you want to check out our next video though, take a look up here.